Have you ever found an unexpected treasure that changed how you view the world? The fluorescent glare of the newsroom was harsh, reflecting off the hard surfaces in blinding strips. Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she shuffled the printed pages of her pitch, the staple barely holding the paper together. The air was thick with the hum of computers and muffled conversations, a stark contrast to the storm swirling in her chest. She stood just inside the editor's glass office, watching the silhouette of Mr. Dalton behind his cluttered desk. Outside, the city pulsed with cold blues and grays, the autumn rain cascading down the windows, blurring the jagged skyline into streaks of silver and charcoal. Her breath hitched. Mr. Dalton looked up, his eyes sharp as a hawk's, scanning the room quickly before settling on her. The dismissal was immediate, cutting through the hopeful silence like shards of glass. "Clara, I'm going to stop you there," he said, voice low but firm. "This angle is sentimental. It's not news. It's fluff. Not what we need right now." Her heart slammed against her ribs, a desperate plea caught in the back of her throat. "It's a story about connection through time. There's more here." He shook his head, eyes cold. "We're chasing clicks, not nostalgia. Focus on something with bite." His words fell like a hammer, echoing off the sterile walls. Clara's colleagues nearby shifted uncomfortably, eyes averted or flickering anxiously toward the closed door behind her. Whispers, muffled but sharp, drifted through the conditioned air, echoes of her perceived failure. A shattered silence settled around her as Mr. Dalton tapped his fingers impatiently. "You're talented. Don't waste it on stories that don't sell," he added, dismissing her with a curt nod. "We have standards." With a swallowed breath, the weight of humiliation pressed down, cold and relentless. Her eyes dropped to the floor-polished concrete that gleamed beneath the office's harsh lights, reflecting the distorted image of a woman standing alone. The rain traced erratic paths down the window panes, mirroring the splintered thoughts in her mind. She retreated to the corner of the open workspace, where the buzz of digital screens painted her face in cool hues, contrasting the warm, fading light of a day she'd hoped would change everything. The vintage necklace around her neck caught a shard of the amber desk lamp's glow, a warm reminder of a legacy that felt distant yet tethered her to a different time, a time when letters carried souls across continents and generations. Her fingers curled briefly around the pendant, a solitary gesture that spoke volumes of the hidden potential she still dared to believe in. Around her, the office pulsed with new stories, headlines flashing like neon signs of fleeting inspiration. Her breath was steady despite the storm inside, the beginning of a quiet resistance taking root beneath layers of doubt. Clara looked up once more, eyes flickering to the city beyond its sharp skyline, a stark silhouette against a twilight sky, promising both challenge and possibility. Outside, the rain continued its relentless descent, tapping a steady rhythm against the glass, a fractured connection between past and future, hope and despair. And somewhere within that cadence, Clara's story was just beginning. The muted clatter of the newsroom faded into a distant hum, swallowed by the cynicism that now crowded Clara's mind. Her footsteps echoed hollowly against the polished floors as she retreated from the circle of cold, indifferent faces. The soft glow of her phone screen sliced through the dim corridor, its fractured glass reflecting the turmoil swirling inside her. The words and rejection from Mr. Dalton replayed like a broken record, gnawing at her confidence. Outside the window, the city skyline loomed, sharp and indifferent buildings crowding the sky, punctuated by blinking office lights that reminded her of the unyielding deadlines and unattainable expectations waiting beyond the newsroom. The cool blue hues of the early evening seeped inside, unwelcome and stark against the warm amber glow that clung to her vintage necklace, swinging softly as she walked. That small talisman connected her to stories before screens, when words transcended time and erased distance. The distant rumble of autumn rain began, drumming steadily against the glass. It was a mournful sound, echoing the ripple of emotions she couldn't name: shame, frustration, vulnerability. Clara paused beneath a faded street lamp, the fractured light over her shoulder casting fractured shadows that resembled a fragmented self, a future splintered into fractured hopes. Her lungs felt tight, as if she were holding her breath, tethered to a place between what was expected and what she dared to dream. Alone on that rain-slicked street, memories of quiet afternoons reading yellowed letters under the warmth of sepia afternoons seeped up from beneath the weight of anonymity. A whisper of something precious surrounded those moments, a past era's secret love, a connection across time now dismissed, buried beneath skepticism and reality's cold weight. "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this," she murmured, voice nearly swallowed by the rain. The vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was a fracture in the armor she crafted daily to face the relentless city and its demands. In the half-light, Clara's fingers tightened around the necklace, drawing strength from the vintage trinket that held the echoes of decades past and whispered promises of stories waiting to be told. A flicker crossed her face, a momentary flicker of defiance amid the swirling doubts. The city's restless noise thrummed at her back, a reminder of the life still waiting to be claimed. She paused again, the rain softening, mingling with the distant murmur of neon signs and the street's subdued pulse. A hesitant breath escaped, a small vow forged in the intersection of doubt and hope. The vintage necklace gleamed faintly beneath the rain's mist, a symbol of enduring connection, of stories carried across time and distance. And in that quiet moment, Clara's eyes brightened with a spark no one could see but her, an ember of resolve ignited amid the storm. Her footsteps quickened, carrying her back toward the glow of the newsroom, a fragile thread pulling her from shadow toward the possibility of new discoveries. The broken phone still chilled in her pocket, a harbinger of an unexpected truth waiting to unfold. Above, the city skyline loomed, a silhouette of promise and peril, of dreams yet to be broken and stories still to be told. And beneath that night-soaked sky, Clara stepped forward, the weight of rejection transforming into the stirring of something restless, something real. The city's evening chill seeped through the cracked window of Clara's apartment, brushing against her skin like a whispered reminder of unseen stories. She sat on the edge of a worn wooden chair, the fractured remnants of her phone lying across the desk in harsh contrast to the warm sepia glow of a vintage lamp. Its screen was shattered, almost a mirror of her own fragmented confidence, but through the cracks, something unexpected caught her eye. A yellowed, brittle page had slipped free from the depths of the phone's broken casing. Clara's fingers trembled as she parted the delicate paper, the handwriting faint yet full of emotion, curled, trembling script that seemed to reach across decades. The ink told of a secret love, a passionate affair hidden beneath the veil of time, two souls intertwined against the rigid constraints of an era long past. The words whispered a forbidden romance born in the heart of the 1980s, faded memories bathed in the warm hues of nostalgia that contrasted sharply with the cool digital blues of her present life. Clara traced the loops and curves, feeling an intimate connection to voices that seemed to speak directly to her, yearning to her unspoken fears of insignificance. A slow swell of determination stirred within her, the crushing weight of rejection beginning to crack under the pressure of this newfound secret. The vintage necklace around her neck, warm and tangible against her skin, pulsed with quiet strength, the link between past and present, memory and dream. Outside, the city skyline glittered with the artificial pulse of neon and traffic. It was a landscape filled with ambition yet shadowed by anonymity. But here, in her hands, lived a story carved from defiance and hidden longing, proof that love and truth could traverse even the barriers of time and skepticism. She pressed the diary page close to her chest, the fragile paper a beacon amid the storm of doubt. The unsuccessful pitch at the newsroom, the editor's dismissals, and the withering gazes faded into a distant echo. What mattered now was this thread of connection, this fragile yet unyielding lifeline tethered to a mystery begging to be unraveled. The soft sound of rain began again outside, pattering rhythmically against the glass, a steady heartbeat that mirrored the stirring resolve within her. Clara's eyes, once clouded with despair, now glimmered with a rebellious light, an ember of hope ready to blaze anew. She stood, the worn floorboards creaking beneath her feet like the rustle of pages turning in an unread book. Her fingers curled tightly around the vintage necklace, grounding her as she prepared to dive into the unknown. In that moment, the broken phone was no longer a symbol of fragmented connection but a conduit bridge spanning decades, poised to reveal stories waiting patiently beneath layers of time and silence. Clara's gaze shifted to the window, where the city's bleeding lights began to dissolve the night's darkness, outlining her silhouette against a sprawling urban tapestry of dreams and possibilities. And with the fragile diary page as her compass, she stepped forward, as if answering a call whispered across the years, toward a story that promised to change not only her fate but the very fabric of her family's forgotten past. The camera lingered on the trembling glow of the page, the soft clatter of rain, and the distant murmur of the awakening city as the first note of a timeless tale began to resonate, fragile but unstoppable. The early light of dawn seeped through tattered curtains, casting a pale, misty glow across Clara's cluttered apartment. The digital hum of the city, muffled yet omnipresent, clawed at the edges of silence as she sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor, the broken phone cracked open before her like an ancient relic unraveling its concealed secrets. Fingers trembling with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, Clara traced the faded script of the diary page wedged between the shattered screens. The words whispered across decades, a secret love affair penned with vulnerability and fierce passion, something timeless, defiant, and almost forbidden. The fragile page pulsed in her hands, a lifeline to stories long forgotten and a beacon of purpose kindling in her chest. Outside, the city was waking the first stirrings of a restless urban heartbeat amplified by the distant rattle of trams and the near-silent footsteps of early risers. The rain, a steady drizzle from the night before, coated the streets and roofs with reflective lenses, mirroring Clara's fragmented resolve. Her gaze flicked from the diary page to her own reflection caught in the window, the vintage necklace resting just above her heart glinting faintly. It was a talisman of connection, a bridge between eras, reminding her of the intertwining of past and present. The weight of the earlier rejection cooled but did not vanish, a shadow lurking beneath burgeoning determination. A whisper of hesitation crept into her breath. This was no longer a forgotten story, it was a challenge. She felt the first, raw thrill of pursuit as the promise of discovery and redemption flickered uncertainly ahead. Clara picked up an old envelope retrieved days ago from a dusty thrift store, its edges worn and the seal cracked. The scent of aged paper mingled with faint lavender, a sensory key unlocking memories she had not yet known she was ready to face. She unfolded the letter inside, words curling in elegant loops, bearing names she recognized from faded family photos, the bridging of generations, hinting that the story was closer to home than she realized. The phone buzzed suddenly on the floor, a sharp intrusion from the present. She snagged it up, hesitant fingers restoring a hologram of her face in a video call from Jacob, a trusted colleague. "Clara, you okay? We heard about the pitch." Her lips quivered for a moment, the weight of solitude pressed fiercely. "I'm trying. I found something. I think it could be it." The screen shimmered with Jacob's steady nod and words of encouragement, but Clara's eyes betrayed the fierce uncertainty underneath the fragile hope. She hung up and exhaled, facing the window again. The city skyline, a jagged silhouette against a gray wash of morning, felt both distant and intimate. Each tower and broken streetlight was a monument to dreams deferred and battles fought in silence. She imagined the voices inscribed on the diary's pages echoing through those streets, laughing, whispering, loving despite the vast gulf of time. Her fingers wrapped tighter around the vintage necklace, a quiet oath to fight not just against the editor's skepticism or her own fears, but against the relentless tide of time itself. She gathered notes, photographs, and faded documents scattered like fragments of a puzzle demanding assembly. Every moment was a step deeper into unknown realms, each victory small and tentative, each dead end sharp and chilling. Through the dusty lens of forgotten archives and the labyrinthine corridors of the city library, Clara traced lines of communication lost but never erased, long silenced letters that breathed new life beneath the hum of digital storms. Late into the night, With shadows lengthening and the soft glow of desk lamps bathing her scattered notes in sepia nostalgia, Clara paused, staring at an obscured name on a brittle page. It struck her the beginning of a revelation threading her story with those long past. Her hands quivered as she realized the story was no longer just out there, it belonged to her. The weight of discovery settled over her like twilight, mysterious and heavy with promise. Beyond the window, the city skyline flickered with the erratic pulse of neon and streetlights, flickers of light fractured like shards of a fragile truth waiting to be pieced together. Clara's breath caught, eyes shining with the first fragile fire of hope born from the depths of doubt. The puzzle was beginning, the hidden tale was unfolding. But with discovery came looming shadows, questions unanswered, dangers unspoken. The past was not merely a whisper, but a heartbeat waiting to explode. The city breathed around her, the fractured connection of modern life mingling with the soft echoes of vintage letters, and Clara knew her story was no longer just about others. It was about herself, her heritage, her dreams, her fragmented stride into the unknown. And in that tangled web of time and truth, Clara took her first brave step. The office was an oppressive cage of humming screens and clipped conversations, yet Clara found no refuge in its sterile glow. Her desk overflowed with scattered papers, a chaotic collage of faded photographs, torn letters, and hastily scribbled notes. Each piece of evidence was a fragile fragment from the past, her gateway into a story growing more tangled and personal with every discovery. The city beyond the window was a restless mosaic of steel and glass, its cool digital hues clashing with the warm, sepia-toned memories that engulfed her mind. The weight of balancing these worlds, her relentless search for truth and the skepticism pressing down from all sides, pressed heavily upon her chest. Her phone buzzed endlessly with emails and messages, many dismissive, highlighting the wariness of colleagues and the sting of disbelief from editors. Yet Clara kept digging, fueled by a tempered flame burning beneath her exhaustion. One evening, the tension finally broke. After hours poring over a fragile stack of letters gleaned from an antique shop, she pieced together cryptic references to places and dates intertwined with her own family history. A breakthrough, but shallow victories came at a cost. Her colleagues' dawn-run coffee rituals ceased to include her. Walls once shared now felt impermeable, conversations more guarded and loaded with veiled warnings. Jacob, once a steadfast ally, approached her with tentative concern, his brow furrowed by the growing gap between the Clara they knew and the woman consumed by shadows and secrets. "You're slipping away," he whispered one afternoon, voice low as they paused beside a window overlooking the city's restless skyline. "Don't lose yourself to the past." She met his gaze, eyes drawn and defiant. "It's the past that's helping me find myself," she replied, voice fragile but resolute. "If I don't do this, who will?" The silence hanging between them was thick with unspoken fear of what she might lose and what she was risking. Yet Clara's clasped hands revealed a quiet surrender to the path she had chosen, even as isolation deepened. Late nights in the digital glow were shattered by sudden dead ends. Archives closed, leads evaporated, and friends' phones stopped ringing. Each setback was a splintering of hope, yet the vintage letters remained a tether, their faded ink a persistent echo urging her onward. One rainy dusk, she sat alone in a cafe, the outside world blurring in raindrops racing down the windows. The din of conversation faded as her breath hitched. A letter slipped from her folder, fluttering to the floor to reveal a bold, red script, a name she recognized, but not from the family she thought she knew. A shock of realization rippled through her, a story interwoven with hidden identities and secrets that demanded more than journalistic curiosity. It beckoned personal reckoning. The boundaries between reporter and participant blurred in an intricate dance she could no longer escape. The city lights flickered as Clara paused outside the cafe, the fractured neon reflecting in the puddled street. Her clasped necklace caught the shifting colors, a sigil of resilience amid uncertainty. A sudden chill fell, carried by the evening breeze, and Clara knew the story had deepened beyond mere narrative. It was becoming a fragile odyssey of discovery, risk, and profound transformation. As her shadow stretched against the glowing pavement, she faced the faceless city, every light a beacon, every silhouette a question yet to be answered. And somewhere between the faded ink of love letters and the relentless pulse of the present, Clara prepared to confront the unyielding weight of the truth waiting to be unveiled. The city wore its nighttime cloak, a dizzying weave of neon and darkness, painting the streets in hues of longing and loss. Clara's apartment, a sanctuary turned crucible, shimmered faintly under the glow of her solitary desk lamp. Her breath caught as she unfolded the latest letter, its edges worn and words fading with time yet burning with undeniable urgency. The letter bore a name her heart had never dared to speak aloud, a name tangled within her own family's history, hidden behind veneers of familiar smiles and quiet Sunday dinners. Her hands trembled, the weight of revelation pressing deep into her chest, slowing the pulse of her own racing thoughts. Flashes of sepia-toned memory invaded her mind, a grandmother's reluctant smile, a fleeting glance exchanged with a stranger from a time lost to photos and fading stories. The vintage necklace around her neck seemed to pulse in resonance, a fragile tether connecting Clara to secrets buried beneath layers of unspoken truths. A quiet storm erupted within her, a confrontation between desire and dread, hope and betrayal. The edges of her world twisted, the once clear line between investigator and subject blurred beyond recognition. Emails from editors and messages from colleagues faded to whispers against the roar of internal reckoning. She realized the story was no longer an abstract pursuit but a mirror reflecting her own heritage, her own identity awash with the complex hues of love and loss. Her phone vibrated softly, a forgotten call from Jacob, now distant yet persistent in his concern. "Clara, are you there? We need to talk." She hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, caught between the desperate need for connection and the isolation that her obsession demanded. Soft rain began to tap the window pane, rhythmic and relentless, echoing the turmoil within. Clara's gaze shifted to the skyline beyond, the fractured silhouette of the city with its towering monuments, flickering lights like fragmented memories reaching toward the heavens. In that moment, she whispered aloud, the words a fragile offering to the swirling night. "The story, it's not just out there. It's inside me." Her eyes, wide and shimmering with unshed tears, reflected the fractured cityscape, the jagged edges of a world divided by time and distance, just like her own heart. Reaching into the depths of the letter pile, she unearthed a photograph, a sepia snapshot of two lovers, faces blurred but emotions raw and vivid. The past and present collided in her hands, a beautiful and painful paradox. The weight of understanding settled on her like the night itself, heavy, suffocating, yet oddly liberating. The boundaries of her quest shattered, replaced by an urgent reckoning with her own history. With a breath caught between fear and determination, Clara's fingers lingered on the photograph before closing it gently. The room faded into a muted hush, broken only by the distant whistle of an unclaimed wind weaving through the city. The screen before her glowed faintly, an unread message blinking silently, one last thread dangling precariously between revelation and risk. And beyond that flickering light, the dawn of an uncertain truth began to stir, a turning point that would forever alter the course of Clara's journey and her very self. The newsroom felt unfamiliar, colder than before, despite the steady buzz of activity that normally breathed life into its concrete walls. Clara sat alone at her desk, the hum of office machines reduced to a background murmur that failed to penetrate the dense fog settling in her mind. The low murmur of conversations was muted against the growing silence within her. Outside, the city was cloaked in a deep, relentless rain. The wet streets gleamed with cold neon reflections, fractured and distorted, mirroring the fractured state of her own spirit. Each droplet tapping against the windowpane sounded like a counting clock, marking the moments slipping irretrievably away. Clara's gaze dropped to the untouched screen before her, where the cursor blinked in cruel impatience. The latest email from her editor, sharp and dismissive, carried the unmistakable tone of finality. Any further pursuit of the unsanctioned love story would jeopardize her position. The words echoed in her ears, cold and unforgiving. "Stop chasing ghosts, Clara. This isn't the path." Her fingers curled into fists beneath the desk, knuckles white against the worn wood. The editor's threats were more than professional warnings, they were a silent verdict of her worth, shattering her fragile defenses. This was not a story she could tell without consequences, and yet it was the only thread left tying her to her dreams. Around her, colleagues passed with eyes averted glances heavy with unspoken judgments. Jacob lingered near a coffee machine, casting concerned looks in her direction, but each time she caught his gaze, she turned away, walls rising, silence thickening. The vintage necklace at her neck, a warm reminder of the past, felt cold against her skin, weighted by the isolation that had settled around her like a shroud. The Storyth mystery had become a curse, alienating her from the world she once longed to embrace. The rain slipped into the night, sliding down sidewalks and pooling in gutters, a black mirror reflecting the disintegration of her own certainty. The city skyline, once a symbol of hope and possibility, now stood jagged and bleak, its lights flickering uncertainly through the storm. Clara's hands trembled as she touched the broken phone, the vessel of fragmented connection, its cracked screen as fractured as her own resolve. The diary pages, once a beacon of promise, now seemed like echoes from a distant, unreachable place. In the quiet moments, voices from the past whispered insistently, pulling at her sanity. The boundaries between memory and reality blurred, shadows deepening until the edges of the room seemed to collapse inward, suffocating. She closed her eyes, fought against the tide of despair threatening to consume her. A solitary breath escapade, a fragile plea, lost in the vast indifference around her. The weight of her dreams felt heavier than ever, the thin thread of hope unraveling beneath the relentless pressures. And as the city's rainstorm raged outside, drowning the night in relentless monotony, Clara sat suspended in a moment of profound rupture, her world unraveling with painful clarity. The silence stretched on, long and unforgiving, a testament to a soul on the edge of fracture. The apartment was cloaked in shadows, an unwelcome refuge from the overcast city outside. The low hum of rain against the cracked windowpane was the only sound, soft, persistent, a rhythmic reminder of time passing, indifferent to her unraveling world. Clara sat slumped on the cold floor, a dim desk lamp casting long, fragile beams of light across scattered sheets of paper and torn photographs. Her fingers scratched absent-mindedly at the delicate vintage necklace resting against her collarbone, now incongruously cold in her hand. The once comforting talisman felt as fractured as her resolve. The broken phone lay discarded on the couch, its shattered screen a cruel mirror to her fractured mind. Its digital glow flickered weakly, sending pools of pale blue light that barely penetrated the growing darkness enveloping her. Every message, every missed call from colleagues, remained unanswered. A silence grew, a deliberate wall built from despair and withdrawal. Outside, the city's vibrant pulse was muted behind therapy glass. Neon lights blinked through the rain like distant stars struggling to shine through smog. A fragmented skyline reflected in the puddles slick with dawn's first chill. It was a fractured world, cracked in the same places as her heart. Clara rose slowly, each movement heavy as gravity pulled her toward the abyss of hopelessness. She looked toward the window, tracing the shadowed skyline with glassy eyes that bore no recognition, no belief that this world was hers to command. In her hand, she clenched the fragile remains of a torn letter, a relic of love and loss that seemed to mock her now. The ink was smudged, half-wiped by tears she refused to shed. It was a symbol of connection frayed, of the past slipping irretrievably through her fingers. There was no voice now but the echo of silence, punctuated only by her ragged breaths, shallow and uneven. The once vibrant narrative she sought to unravel had become a cavernous echo chamber of failures and barrenness. The necklace in her palm slipped and fell, spinning to a stop atop a stack of old letters, their pages yellowed and curled like autumn leaves long forgotten. The sound was almost inaudible but deafening in its finality, a small crash that reverberated through the hollow chambers of her soul. Alone with the weight of silence, Clara sank to the floor again, her body folding inward as if trying to disappear. The walls seemed to close relentlessly, pressing shadows into sharp edges that cut the air with quiet menace. Her thoughts fractured like the shattered phone screen, fragments of hope dissolving into void, disconnected dreams lost in the static of defeat. A call softly vibrated through her phone, now on silent beside her. She did not reach for it. The ringing faded, swallowed by the swelling tide of emptiness. No words were spoken, none were needed. The room held its breath as Clara's spirit hovered on the cusp of surrender. Outside, the rain lightened but never ceased, washing the streets with relentless persistence, mirroring the rawness within. And in that endless, fragile stillness, the rupture inside her deepened in unyielding black that seemed to stretch into forever. The final fragment of light faded, swallowed by night that claimed all solace. The early dawn struggled to pierce the heavy curtains, casting dim, tentative shafts of light across the cluttered room. Clara sat at her desk, surrounded by the scattered remnants of a story unraveling her from within. The pages of faded letters, diary fragments, and photographs lay in disarray, testaments to a past both elusive and hauntingly real. Her fingers trembled as they delicately traced the edges of an old, yellowed letter, its ink faded but full of whispered confessions. A soft sigh escaped her lips, the weight of months of solitude and setbacks pressing upon her like an oppressive fog. Her vintage necklace, worn and cherished, rested cold against her skin, a quiet reminder of the enduring link between past and present. The room was suffused with silence, broken only by the soft tick of an old clock and the distant murmur of the waking city, timeless rhythms contrasting with the fractured narrative consuming her. Clara's gaze lifted toward the window, where the city skyline shimmered in the watercolor haze of morning, lights flickering like fragile promises. The rain from the night before had left the streets glistening, a mirror reflecting fractured hopes and dreams. She closed her eyes, a flash of sepia-hued memory surfacing. Her grandmother's hands, weathered by time but steady, folding a letter with careful reverence. The soft cadence of a voice long silenced whispered in her mind, a lullaby of courage and enduring love. Opening her eyes, Clara's tears caught the nascent sunlight, reflecting both sorrow and an ember of restless resolve. From the scattered papers on the desk, she lifted a small, delicate pageant she had almost missed amid the chaos. Its handwriting was familiar, intimate, and unmistakable. The words resonated deeply, a cryptic message hinting at a secret yet to be uncovered, a path winding beyond pain and hesitation. Her breath caught, heart fluttering at the fragile spark ignited by the discovery, a fragile sliver of light breaking through the encompassing darkness. Suddenly, the phone buzzed softly on the desk, vibrating against the wood with insistent urgency. Clara glanced at the screen, an incoming call from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered with a tentative whisper, "Hello?" No words came through, only a faint crackle and the quiet hum of a distant melody intertwined with soft, breathy whispers familiar and haunting. The connection was fleeting, fragile, but undeniable. The room seemed to pulse with the echoes of voices long lost, weaving through the present like a sigh carried on the wind. It was a call to action, a promise that the story and Clara's own journey was far from over. She slowly rose from her chair, the weight of despair momentarily lifting as a quiet determination settled within her. The vintage necklace gleamed softly in the morning light, a talisman reborn with the promise of untold truths. The city outside stirred with tentative life, caught between shadow and sunrise, reflecting the fragile hope awakening within Clara's soul. Pausing at the window, she breathed deeply, embracing the delicate balance of vulnerability and strength shimmering on the horizon. Her story was no longer just a tale of loss and silence. It was a journey toward revelation, a fragile prayer sent across time, destined to find its voice anew. The first light of dawn seeped softly through the narrow window of Clara's cluttered apartment, casting a gentle amber glow over the scattered papers and faded photographs of memories long preserved. Shadows retreated from the corners, displaced by a tender warmth that hinted at a fragile awakening. Clara sat at her desk, the ancient, weathered diary open before her, its pages delicate, yet filled with the unspoken promises of unseen truths. Her fingers hesitated on the cover, trembling with a mixture of reverence and trepidation. The weight of despair had begun to lift, replaced by a hesitant hope, a cautious acknowledgement that healing could begin. The vintage necklace around her neck shimmered faintly in the soft light, a tangible anchor to the past she was slowly reclaiming. The room was quieter than it had been in months. The heavy silence was broken only by the distant hum of city life awakening beyond her window, a stark contrast to the stillness within. The city skyline, fractured with memories and dreams, stretched across the horizon, its jagged silhouette softened in the golden glow of dawn, promising renewal. Clara's gaze drifted over the pages, faded ink, trembling handwriting, a whisper of love, loss, and longing penned by hands she now realized belonged to her grandmother. The words were delicate threads woven through time, connecting generations, yet pulsing with life, hope, and the unbreakable bond of love. A breath, slow and deliberate, escaped her lips, a gentle exhale of the weight she had carried alone, a whisper of surrender to the possibility of change. Her hand reached out, tentative yet purposeful, to brush the edge of the diary, the fragile paper cradled in her palm like a sacred relic. In that quiet moment, something shifted, a delicate bloom of courage unfurling amid the shadows. Clara's eyes shimmered with a trace of tears, shimmering in the morning light, reflecting both sorrow for the past and anticipation for the future. The worn leather of the diary felt cool beneath her fingertips, yet somehow warm in its promise. The connection to her roots, the stories buried deep within her family, began to stir, awakening her dormant sense of purpose. The storm of doubt and despair had not vanished, but its hold was loosening. Outside, a solitary bird broke the dawn silence with a song, of fragile yet unwavering declaration of resilience. The golden hour cast long, soft shadows that danced gently across the room, hinting at rebirth. Her gaze lingered on the skyline as the sun broke above the horizon, illuminating her face with a tender glow. The city's fractured silhouette now shimmered in hues of hope, a mirror of her own emerging spirit. The past and present intertwined, light and shadow, love and loss, each finding a fragile harmony. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the quiet strength rising within her, a whisper that she was not alone. The journey was far from over, but this dawn of realization sprouted silent wings of possibility. And as she looked once more at the diary, a faint smile touched her lips, a delicate promise that the next chapter was finally hers to write. The once dark room had begun to glow softly, as if dawn was spilling into the shadows that clung stubbornly to the corners. Clara stood at the heart of this newfound light, clutching the weathered diary close to her chest. Her breath was steady now, each inhale a silent vow. The city skyline outside, once fractured and distant, shimmered faintly in the early morning sun, casting warm hues that brushed against her face like a blessing. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt and despair, now burned with a quiet conviction. The shadows receded, their grip loosened by the unwavering clarity flooding through her veins. The ancient pages, once cryptic and whispering of secrets best left hidden, now seemed to resonate with truth and purpose. "I believe in this story," she whispered aloud, the words a sacred incantation grounding her. "It's more than evidence. It's my legacy." The room filled with silent space, a hallowed pause before her next act. She moved deliberately, a gentle reverence in each step toward her laptop, her voice steady and resolute. The cursor hovered over the Publish button, a culmination of months of struggle, doubt, and fragile hope. Before she clicked, she closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing her ancestors, their stories woven into the fabric of her entire being. The vintage necklace caught the sunlight, shimmering like a beacon on anchor to truths she was finally ready to share. "This is my truth," she declared softly, finger poised. "And I will not hide anymore." With a decisive motion, she pressed Publish, and the story launched into the digital cosmos. The screen flickered briefly, then a ripple of light and her words began to spread, shared across social platforms, news outlets, and private conversations. Public support began to surge, whispers of praise and solidarity echoing through the virtual realm. Clara's breath hitched as the early effects of her courage unfurled, messages pouring in, affirmations from strangers and friends alike, all believing in her story, her purpose. The viral wave was more than a victory, it was a resurrection. In that moment, the weight of her isolation lifted, replaced by a collective resonance, a symphony of voices affirming her worth. Her shoulders straightened, her eyes shining with the unwavering light of purpose reclaimed. She stepped back, gaze lifting toward the skyline, which now seemed less fractured, more unified, each building a testament to resilience and enduring love. The city's fractured silhouette was slowly healing, drawn together under the warm glow of dawn. And in her hand, she gently placed the diary and her manuscript, symbolic tokens of her journey. She looked out into the awakening city, heart swelling with hope and gratitude. The camera pulled back slowly, framing her silhouette against the vast, luminous horizon, a silent testament to renewal and the unbreakable power of truth. As the sunlight spilled fully into her world, so did a profound sense of peace settle over her, an unspoken promise that the story was only just beginning. The room was ablaze in a radiant, almost celestial light. Sunlight poured through the expansive windows, illuminating the space with a warmth that seemed to dissolve the shadows of doubt and despair. Clara stood at the center, the ancient diary clasped tightly in her hands, her figure bathed in a halo of golden glow. Every line of her body radiated a newfound strength, her shoulders open, her gaze steady, unshaken. Behind her, the city skyline stretched majestic and resilient, its silhouette sharp and proud against the dawn. The fractured, jagged edges of her past had been smoothed into a harmonious whole, one illuminated by truth and courage. Her victory was quiet, profound, and unmistakably real. The vintage necklace shimmered in the sunlight, a symbol of enduring connection, a chain linking her to the ancestors who had fought unseen battles, whose love and resilience she now recognized as her own inheritance. With deliberate grace, she took a step forward toward the future, toward the stories waiting to be rediscovered. Her voice was calm but unwavering, a declaration that crossed the threshold of fear and insecurity. This story, this truth belongs to us. To every whispered secret, every long-lost love, every fragment of history that tried to slip away. With a gentle yet resolute gesture, she laid the diary on the table, its pages now shining with renewed purpose. The journey was far from over, but she embraced it with unwavering conviction. A gust of wind stirred the curtains, catching the light and casting iridescent patterns that danced softly across the room. Clara gazed out the window, her silhouette framed against the awakening city, now vibrant and alive, shaped anew by the love and legacy she uncovered. The camera slowly pulled back, elevating her into a portrait of serene strength. Her face reflected a journey internal and eternal, the trauma of loss, the pain of discovery, and the quiet joy of self-acceptance. She was no longer a fractured, uncertain soul, but a beacon of hope, a guardian of stories that refused to fade. The dawn's glow deepened, enveloping her in an embrace of light and promise. The city, resilient and proud, echoed her own awakening, a silent symphony of resilience, love, and hope. As the scene softened into a luminous tableau, Clara stood poised on the cusp of the final chapter, ready to write it in her own voice, in her own time, with a depth of purpose that would echo through generations. Morning sunlight streamed softly through the expansive windows, casting a warm, honey-toned glow across the quiet cityscape. Clara stood alone on the rooftop of her apartment building, overlooking the skyline that had once seemed fractured and distant. Now, it shimmered with a gentle, invincible light, each building a testament to resilience and hope. The air was still, peaceful in its simplicity, yet alive with quiet promises. In her hands, she held the vintage diary and her new manuscript, both symbols of her journey, woven together in a tapestry of love, loss, and self-discovery. Her fingers traced the worn edges of the pages, a gentle touch echoing the profound respect she now felt for her past and her future. The chaos and despair that had once consumed her had gradually given way to a deeper understanding, the realization that her story was more than just revealing family secrets. It was a testament to her resilience. Her eyes lingered on the city's silhouette, the dawn's gentle light illuminating its contours. Every tower and skyline spoke of unfinished stories, of dreams built and battles fought, each a silent hymn to perseverance. Clara closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the crisp morning air, and felt an inexplicable sense of peace settle within her. She thought of the night she dropped her phone and discovered the secret pages tucked inside, their whispering echoes now silent but eternally alive in her heart. The story that once teetered on the brink of chaos had found its place in her soul. It had woven itself into her very being, transforming her from a strange seeker into a woman finally anchored in herself. The vintage necklace lay warm against her chest, a steady reminder of love that transcended generations, a bridge connecting her to her grandmother's silent strength and enduring hope. Her shoulders, once weighed down by doubt, now relaxed, her posture a reflection of quiet confidence. A gentle breeze stirred her hair as she turned away from the rooftop, stepping back into her apartment, a space no longer a battlefield but a sanctuary. The room was filled with symbols of her victory, the diary, her manuscript, and the light that softened all remaining shadows. Her lips curved into a subtle, knowing smile. For the first time in months, she felt the steady pulse of proportion and spoken acknowledgement that the story wasn't finished. It had only begun anew in her. The past, once a tangled web of secrets buried deep, now shimmered with clarity and love, ready to be shared. As the camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette against the awakening city, a profound stillness settled over her, a gentle, serene acceptance of her journey. The skyline stretched out, vast and inviting, a mirror to her expanding heart and unbreakable spirit. The dawn's golden glow bathed everything in a tender light, illuminating the road ahead and the stories yet to be told. The golden hour settled over the city skyline, bathing the horizon in a gentle, forgiving glow. Clara stood on the balcony of her apartment, the city whispering softly beneath her, lights twinkling like distant memories and untold stories. In her hands, she cradled the vintage diary and her latest manuscript, symbols of a journey redeemed and truths unveiled. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, where the glass towers stretched upward, resilient and unbowed. The faint silhouette of her grandmother's handwriting lingered in her mind, a silent echo of love that refused to fade, an eternal bond that bridged generations. Her expression softened, a tranquil smile unfurling across her face, an acceptance of herself, her past, and her future. The chaos, the doubts, the darkness all seemed to dissolve into the tapestry of the sunlit sky. She closed her eyes, breathing in the crisp air, and felt a wave of calm wash over her, an unspoken forgiveness for the pain, the missed chances, the fears that once seemed insurmountable. She understood now. Her story was not just about uncovering the past. It was about healing, forgiving, and embracing her own uncharted path. The vintage necklace shimmered warmly, a quiet testament to love's enduring power, timeless, unbreakable, shining bright amid the shadows. In that moment, she made peace with her fears, her insecurities, and the silent scars etched deep within her soul. A gentle wind stirred the hem of her dress, a tender caress of hope and renewal. The city's lights flickered like a lullaby, whispering promises of new beginnings beneath the vast, forgiving sky. With a deep, steadying breath, Clara stepped back inside the pages of her life, now turning with renewed purpose. The diary, the manuscript, and the cityscape outside weren't just relics of her journey, they were now intertwined, part of her living testament to love, resilience, and the power of truth. The camera pulled away slowly, framing her figure against the expansive dawn, a silent monument to her transformation. The morning sun cast a luminous halo, a cinematic embrace of peace and possibility. The world awaited, silent but eager, a canvas she was finally ready to paint with her heart. The city skyline shimmered beneath a canvas of soft, indigo hues, a tranquil silhouette against the fading stars. Clara stood at the edge of her apartment balcony, the weight of her journey finally settling into a gentle calm. In her hands, she cradled the old diary, its pages now silent, yet alive with the love, sacrifice, and resilience etched into every line. The vintage necklace glinted softly in the subdued light, a quiet talisman of her ancestors' enduring love. A cool breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of dawn and the promise of peace. Her eyes lingered on the horizon, where the morning sun peeked timidly over the city's undulating silhouette, casting a golden glow that seemed to embrace her soulbeth, fragile and invincible. Velvet silence fell, a space filled with the echoes of her footsteps, the quiet, unwavering march from despair to hope, from fear to acceptance. Every tear shed, every dark night endured, had sculpted her into this tranquil, resilient form. The city beneath her was alive with restless energy, yet within her, a profound serenity had blossomed, a quiet testament to her transformation. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the crisp air and olfactory memory of all the quiet victories, the whispered stories, and the unyielding love that had guided her home. The vintage necklace rested warm against her chest, anchoring her to the present as her spirit reached toward a future unshackled by doubt. In that still moment, she gently set the diary down on the balustrade, a symbolic offering to the past and future intertwined. The pages that once threatened to unravel her now served as the foundation of her newfound strength, immutable, eternal, and true. A single, lingering shot captured her silhouette against the dawn, peaceful, yet invigorated, a soul reborn amid the gentle light. The city stretched infinitely before her, a vast canvas waiting to be painted with stories of love, hope, and perseverance. The camera slowly pulled away, a cinematic breath taken in that quiet affirmation of renewal. Behind her, the skyline shimmered, a testament to resilience, a monument to love transcending the boundaries of time. Everything was still, yet everything was alive, holding its breath in silent awe of the woman who had found her voice again. Have you ever found a forgotten piece of love history? Share your discovery.